Welcome to Season 6 of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. This season, we're shaking things up a bit with deeper questions into the paranormal. And to do that, your host, Nicholas McGirr, has invited the owner of Amen Paranormal Research, Joshua Amen, to be his co-host. To learn more about their studies and articles, visit storiesinthecemetery.com, or you can check out the Paranormal Investigation Workbook or the Paranormal Investigator's Almanac, both available on Amazon. Stories in the Cemetery takes you ghost hunting in Charleston, South Carolina, and reveals his findings from those investigations here on the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. Let's get into today's episode with Nick and Josh.
It's a miracle.
Good job, Skype. Welcome to episode 64. Everybody, this is Nick from Stories in the Cemetery, and my co-host is with me,
Joshua Amen from Amen Paranormal Research.
Yes, you guys have been listening to us for quite a few months now. We're going further back in time. We're in 2006 right now, Josh. That's how far in advance we've recorded all of this shit. We're just going to keep, joking around about that because it's just a fun inside joke. So let's go through some quick show notes. Nothing really crazy different, but always reminders for some of the things that Josh and I are working on. First and foremost, we'll talk about the tours right here in Charleston, South Carolina. And yes, I said South Carolina. I was once mistaken for being in North Carolina. I don't know where that guy got his map from, but it ain't. Wow, must be maybe we'll just say maybe it's the new presidential map that he's just renaming.
There you go.
We'll just go with that.
Gerrymandered.
I know, right? All of our merch, and that includes Stories in the Cemetery and the Amen Paranormal Research, tees, hats, magnets, buttons, stickers to slap all over your city, are all available at TeePublic. You can find that link in the show notes. I'm still over 70 designs at this point. So again, who knows where the hell I'll be by the time this airs in, 2025. I think we're airing this, Josh, that far into the future. So,
yep.
The S6E Workbook and the Paranormal Investigator's Almanac are available on Amazon, not affiliated with anything else called Paranormal Almanac. All of my fiction works are also available on Amazon. You can find those in the show notes. And of course, respectively, always visit our websites, storiesinthecemetery.com and amenparanormalresearch.com. So I think at this point, Josh should have his scavenger hunt up and running. So Josh,
Yep.
Do you want to talk about that at all? Do you want to bring it up?
Yeah. So the Paranormal Scavenger Hunt is going to be an interactive ghost hunting experience where you will
Stole my name.
where you will not only use the equipment, but you will be following a scavenger hunt. So you will be following a scavenger hunt list where you will be able to kind of complete tasks, mark things off, and at the end of the night, there will be one person raffled out from all the tickets that will win their own paranormal equipment to start their own paranormal journey with. So
Very cool, man.
yeah, it's a lot like what Nick does in Charleston, but it does have its own different twist and flair. We don't walk the streets of the city. I actually take my ghost hunters out into a haunted location. So we're going to be using Pasadena's Colorado Street Bridge, otherwise known as Suicide Bridge. And that will be an entire investigation at different points along the trails underneath it, or impact points, as I would call it, during the tour.
Nice. So, guys, that's Pasadena, California. If you haven't realized by now, Josh and I are on different coasts. We have to synchronize watches to be able to correlate, for us to be able to meet up and be able to record these very kick-ass episodes for you. So, Josh, congrats on your paranormal scavenger hunt. I heard you got some really cool logo work done for that, too. So kudos to you, man, for finding, somebody that was willing to do that for you. Last and
I got friends
least,
in high places.
the high places. Yeah. Okay. We're always going to ask you to comment on these episodes through Spotify, and stream through Spotify. So the more streamers we get, the more through the algorithm we get through Spotify. And of course, you can always leave a 5 Ghost review on the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. So, Josh, this episode, dear God, see what I did there? So this is this is another fascinating concept, and Josh and I love diving into some of this weird shit that isn't always like advertised through, we'll just say, the normal ghost hunting equipment manufacturers. To be able to see how it works. I mean, if you listen to the last episode, I mean, we talked about like ferrofluid and creating ghost traps like Venkman. Like, come on. You can't find this shit on a normal ghost hunter's, equipment store online anywhere. So, Josh, lead us in, man. What the hell is this thing? What does it do? I want to know. Like, let's get into it.
So, the God Helmet wasn't even created to be this religious device, but it ended up with this name.
Always by accident.
Yeah, it was complete. It's always by accident. And the guys that invented this, they didn't want this to be called the God Helmet. Like, this was not their intention.
What was the intended name? Do you remember? Do you know?
I didn't see any kind of an intended name for it. It was just this helmet with magnets in it. And these guys, Michael Persinger and Stanley Coren, so they created this helmet just to study the brain. And all it is the helmet is lined with magnetic coils that fit over your head, and there's a computer sound card that generates a signal. So it generates a sound signal, it's played through the coils, it creates a magnetic kind of like blanket that goes around your head.
So
and
is this is this just as a question? And first off, I found another name for it called the Shiva helmet. I'm not sure if that's the original name for it before God helmet, but that is another name for this type of helmet. But my question for you is this the same type of concept? Because there are headphones now for like normal listening purposes of music and whatnot that will use your temporal lobes to be able to transmit the sound through versus going over your ears. Is this the same type of concept?
So it is the same type of concept because it is conveying like a sound wave or a magnetic wave, and it is stimulating the same thing because it is stimulating your temporal lobes.
Okay.
The difference is I think your radio waves from your music are a little different than the magnetic waves coming from the helmet. So it's the same general concept, but a different tier as far as where you are on the EM spectrum.
Fair. I get it. Okay. Please proceed. I always like to ask these questions, guys, because I truly sometimes just don't know. It's not for me just to try to get Josh to try to explain things in simpler terms. It is something like, dude, I don't get it. Like, and I'm okay with saying that. And that's part of being a paranormal researcher, is asking questions. So please, Josh, proceed. What else does this thing do? Like, what's the whole purpose of it?
So the magnetic fields created by the helmet are supposed to stimulate your temporal lobe into almost like a middle ground of like between consciousness.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be very strong. So supposedly these magnets are weaker than refrigerator magnets. And I mean, this sparked a whole conversation last night where you were just about ready to start duct taping magnets to your face.
Yeah. I'm all about it. Let's do it.
But I mean, the original like experiment for this, like they really were trying to do something with it. And they put the subject in a room that basically was a giant Faraday cage. So they went as far as having this room that was blocking out any kind of electromagnetic radiation, and put the helmet on, and it was almost like a cross between trying to stimulate almost like hallucinations to the point of almost being able to do like the out of body experiences. So this is the middle ground between remote viewing. So there's a lot of experimentation with remote viewing.
Right.
And this experiment is actually a field that they refer to as neurotheology.
Okay.
So, and they measure everything in microtesla. Now, before we started recording, Nick and I talked about this, and I'm like, microtesla, you put micro in front of anything, and we all think, oh, it's teeny, teeny, tiny. And I looked at it and I converted Tesla into milligauss, which is a term we're a little bit more familiar with in the paranormal community because all of our EMF meters read in milligauss. 1 microtesla equals 10 milligauss. So even if all of these magnets on your head are reading 1 microtesla each, you're literally wearing a helmet that is 5 times the acceptable amount of EMF that you should have near you at any point in time.
Now, for perspective, I'm going to throw this in there because this is the exact example that I give to my folks on the tour. Is your TV set? If you put a millimeter behind it, you're going to get a reading of between 40 to 60 milligauss. And that's behind the TV set where all the wires are, where all of your PlayStation stuff is plugged in, or Xbox, or whatever it is that you have plugged in back there. And
We're a
that's,
PlayStation show here.
yeah, we are a PlayStation show for sure. So, anyway, well, I got to catch up to Josh with his PS5. So, anyway, back to the readings of this. Imagine all of the electricity that's being emitted from your TV and all of your wiring that's behind your TV set, which is probably a jumbled freaking mess, and that is being plugged into your brain, your temporal lobes. It's being, emitted into your skin on the outside of the sides of your head, basically. So I just wanted to put that in perspective because I know, like, we talk in milligauss and millimeters and things like that on previous episodes, and I like to give examples all the time based off of things that we know about. So again, imagine it's on the side of your head. And I'm sorry, Josh, I'll let you proceed because again, sometimes putting things in that kind of perspective really gives us a sense of thought, instead of like, oh, it's 3 inches, instead of saying,
Yeah.
it's, half the size of your TV remote. You know what I mean? That puts things in a better perspective for you. So anyway, please proceed.
I mean, what's even more terrifying is there's another experiment that is not related to this because of the difference in how high of a level you're being exposed to. And it's called TMS, transcranial magnetized stimulation. So TMS is much stronger to the point of it's 1 million times the strength of a God helmet.
Wow.
So this is at
Like
this
electric
point, this is
shock therapy is what it sounds
insane.
like.
Yeah, this is insane amounts of magnetic radiation, and it's like, God, I can't even imagine. I mean, even with the God helmet itself, participants reported sightings of God, which is what caused the name, God helmet. Amen. Woo. They had a body of experience. They had waking dreams. They saw apparitions. People felt presences in the room with them because you're also blindfolded during this experiment. So
Right.
it is supposed to be some sort of way to increase the ability of remote viewing. And where it came into the paranormal is people started using it to increase the ability to use the spirit box and the Estes method.
So some of the things that I read about the presence in the room and the presence of God in the room, there was kind of like a scientific backing for it, based off of the person who created this, because again, they didn't want it to be, this type of paranormal experimentation. They wanted to experiment with consciousness was basically what they were after. And they had a scientific reason for the presence in the room was that because they were reaching a part of the brain that was basically acknowledging oneself and being able to see oneself in like what's the word I'm looking for? So almost like a side projection, like out of the corner of your eye kind of mentality. You can't see that it's yourself that you're projecting because you're realizing that through part of the brain that recognizes that. So they automatically detect that it's another person because in real world you can't technically sense yourself on another part of the room. So the brain automatically goes into logical thinking of like, oh, that must be somebody else. And obviously it's not me, but essentially it is the person that is. I know that this is I'm not describing it properly or thoroughly at that matter because I've never done this experiment before. I've never seen it done. I've heard of this God helmet and I was always curious about it. But once I started reading like some of like the scientific backing, at least from the debunking portion of the creator, I wanted to like really dive in a little bit further with some of the research to see how much was actually being done with it. Is it still being done? So forth and so on. So, Josh, when was this thing created? Do you have like the years in front of you?
I don't have the years. I'm surprised I didn't include that in the research. I'm ashamed.
I want to say like didn't it start like in the 1970s because they were using originally some type of like soccer helmet I thought I saw or skiing helmet and it was yellow with black
Yeah,
stripes on it. Yeah.
correct,
Um
correct.
so and I know it wasn't like an American, type of invention. So I know it was definitely, not from this country. So I think that's why the skiing helmet was a little bit more common for that instead of like using a football helmet as we probably would have done. But the whole point that I guess I'm trying to make
They
here is
actually developed this around the early 2000s.
okay. So why did the skiing helmet come up? It's weird. I don't know why I was thinking 60s and 70s. I think I read that there was some airing of some of the reports and results from the experiments were coming up in the early 2000s, and some of like the psychical societies and things like that were starting to dive into like, does this actually work?
Oh, you know what? I think there's some different things out. So this one is saying Michael Persinger is an American scientist.
Oh,
So he was an American scientist, and it was the 1980s that he actually claimed to induce a sensation of a presence in normal participants using the God helmet. And they actually originally called it the Corn helmet after the other inventor.
yeah. I thought it was like before the 2000s because the 2000s is when it like started to come to like fruition of, that's when obviously a lot of the ghost hunting shows were starting to go big and things like that. So I'm sure like something was done to kind of publicize this. But wasn't this, this doctor, wasn't he American but left for Canada? I think was the story that I read. So I don't think it was created here. I think he is American, but created it somewhere else. I guess minor details of like what this thing is capable of and what we should be discussing. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, I'm fascinated by this thing. And believe it or not, like Josh and I, when he presented this topic for the show, I thought it was because he was going to be like some kind of true believer or he's seen it or, he had something in it about it. So and I've heard of it. Like I said, people have mentioned it to me before, but I've never really dove into it. And believe it or not, folks, like I do get into, and I'll call it the woo-woo shit, about
Mhm.
this field, but it has to be, I don't want to say has to be. It's in a vein where I believe it can be helpful to either understand things or it's the stem of where we could start to understand things. And I think the brain and the way we visualize and our perception of things is where I get fascinated because I'm still a believer that we were meant to have more abilities with our brain than what we actually are using them for. And that's just my personal opinion. I think we were all born with some type of psychic ability, whether that be, telepathy or ESP or whatever the case might be, but we are conditioned over time to not use them because we were labeled with religious values that these things are taboo in the subject that they might be evil or demonic or whatever your religion entails. And again, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that, but I think if there were stifling abilities that we should have been using, how much further along in this field and in humanity would we actually be? But that's why things like this God helmet that stimulates the brain to bring you to a different part of consciousness, actually brings a fascination, at least to me, especially somebody with a history of seizures. And we all know that the brain works off of neurons and electrical currents moving through to make it work with the rest of our body and be the brain. You get the point. But when Josh presented it and I texted him like, "Hey, this is kind of fascinating." He's like, "I'm not buying this crap." Like, that was kind of the gist of the conversation. But I was like, dude, think of what if though? What if we could truly have that out of body experience and we would know more about the other side or what we're made out of? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what truly is the soul? And how do we really look at this? Which kind of answers your question of what the hell is a ghost made out of? Is it a soul?
Yeah.
It could answer a lot of shit for us. And the God helmet, and I'm just going to bring this up before we go into break because Josh, I sent you a price of what somebody was selling the system
Mhm.
for. Because I was like, I wonder, can I buy one of these? Can I take it on the ghost hunting experiences here in Charleston? And I'm like, I can't like do electric shock therapy to my guests. Like, that's not what they signed up for. But I did find one particular website that had it for sale. Let's see. And all of this will be in the show notes, of course. So you can order the entire Shiva system that includes the God helmet hardware and the software for $649 plus shipping and handling, which is $20 in the USA and $40 for other countries. There's a whole list of requirements for the computers that you need to run this type of software and to be able to read all of the readouts basically that come up with it. But I find it fascinating. Like you can buy this thing, Josh. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think people are actually buying this thing for $650?
Honestly, I hope to hell they're not, because when you really look at like the science behind why they did this, like he was looking at the fact that, people that have temporal lobe epilepsy, 38% of them report religious or mystical experiences during these epileptic moments. And this is kind of what he was going for. So I hope to hell people aren't using this because it sounds like it could be dangerous.
And I'll argue that it might actually be helpful. So imagine you kind of put your brain not on a full reset, but just on enough of a jolt to bring it back, and I'll make the joke. So we all seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and we all remember the daughter that shows up from the camper, and they all, exclaim that her eyes aren't crossed anymore. Do you remember that line? So the whole point is the father makes the joke, well, she got kicked in the head by a mule or whatever the hell happened to her. So basically she had a soft reset and it fixed her eyes. So that's the kind of thought process that I have of getting kicked by a mule in the face. and it and basically could it actually cure some of the things that we have going on with mental health these days, with seizures, with epilepsy? Do we just need a soft reset? Do we need that little bit of a jolt of, plug your TV into your face and see how much of the voltage can by all means, am I not condoning that you like lick your outlet from your TV. But I'm just questioning the concept of it. If it was in a controlled environment by professionals, is it a possibility that this could actually help out people that actually have some of those mental health issues or neurological issues? Just a thought.
I mean, there's definitely a lot more in all of that that we'll be able to kind of like come back to, I'd say, in the second half of this.
And I think that's just the perfect segue. So, guys, when we come back after this quick sponsor break, we're going to discuss some of the things. And again, I'm into some of the woo-woo stuff, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Now, what I do out on the tours is strictly science, excuse me, and strictly things that we can measure. Things with the woo-woo and the dowsing rods and that kind of thing. I can't measure it, nor do I know that it's not just the user manipulating things. But have I used dowsing rods and have gotten results? I've had minor results from that. Have I used, spirit board, gotten results? Absolutely. But I'm the only one that knows that it was actually working because I was the only one with the hands on the board. And that's where some of my belief system comes from with some of this extra we'll just say non-electronic type devices, and that's where the woo-woo stuff starts to fall into play. So quick sponsor break, and then we will kind of get into something else about the mind that Josh and I started to have a discussion on, but I said, let's save it for the actual recording because it was getting pretty in depth. So quick break.
Is it on your bucket list to go ghost hunting with real paranormal equipment like you see on your favorite paranormal TV shows? You're in luck. Your host of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast also runs an interactive ghost hunting experience in Charleston, South Carolina. You use all the equipment, spirit boxes, EMF meters, paranormal cameras, and more, all while running different paranormal experiments at each location. This includes live EVP sessions, the Estes method, and well, you'll just have to come experience this one-of-a-kind event for yourself. Nightly investigations available to small groups of 10 all year long. So head over to storiesinthecemetery.com to book your investigation.
Do you want to go ghost hunting with your host, Josh Amen? Well, guess what? You can. Josh from Amen Paranormal Research is hosting a paranormal scavenger hunt in Pasadena, California, and you can win some great prizes. Small, intimate groups of 6 as you learn how to identify real paranormal activity while using Josh's high-caliber equipment. These events are limited, and there are only 6 tickets available for each event, so head over to amenparanormalresearch.com to purchase your tickets, and we'll see you on the paranormal scavenger hunt.
All right, folks, we are back. Thanks for allowing us to put the sponsor in the show. I'm not going to brag about how great Magnanimous beard products are yet again, but there it is. I'm bragging about how great they are. So, aside from this being called a God helmet, I like Karen helmet better. Again, I'm not, a very religious person these days. Of course, growing up, I think we all, went to some type of church and, those kind of things, raised that way. But there are some things that Josh and I were discussing that have been proven to actually help in the mental capacity through other. Josh, are these EM fields? Are they just radio waves? Like, what are we speaking about here?
So it all still falls into the EM spectrum.
Okay.
Radio waves, magnetic waves, it all falls into the electromagnetic spectrum. The only thing that I think wouldn't kind of fall into that is the vibration. So like a cat purring is on the frequency of healing, but that isn't an electromagnetic field. It's a vibration. When somebody plays a didgeridoo, they use it for healing. When I was younger and I went out to outdoor science camp and they send us up in the mountains and get us away for a week and let our parents relax. One of the camp counselors used a didgeridoo with a guy who one of the kids had a broken arm. And, he played it over his arm, and it's the vibrations. They promote healing. They promote your immune system to get going. And it's all about vibration with some of those things. And some of us use sound machines to go to sleep, or ASMR, which is really popular nowadays. And that's all, technically radio wave, which is part of the EM spectrum.
So Josh had to explain to me what ASMR is. So Josh, do one more quick explanation for us East Coasters that didn't, and maybe it's my age because I'm over 70. That I didn't understand fully what this was. I know, just barely. But yeah, go ahead and give us a quick explanation of what ASMR is.
So ASMR is basically someone doing soft whispering and making noises that are pleasurable to the ear or the listener. Some people do microphone scratching, or making noises by touching the mic or touching something close to the mic that gives almost like a tingling sensation to the listener. And it's pleasurable. It's soothing, and it's kind of like, people that listen to their mother sing when they were younger, and then they have that memory and emotion later on to correlate to the singing. It's just ways to help relax the body. And you also find this a lot in meditation, chakra work, and hertz. Nick brought it up earlier. Hertz is something that people will listen to for healing, and they have it for different chakras. They have it for different things. I mean, you can find a video online for anything, and it'll say hertz. It'll solve all your problems. You listen to this hertz, and it'll make your brain work harder. It'll make you smarter. It'll make you feel better. It'll fix your aches and pains. I mean, to an extent, these aren't all wild claims, but they are definitely not a cure-all. Like, you're not going to listen to a 30-minute video and then be like, damn, I feel amazing.
Right. And I can attest to this, and I'm going to point out one thing about what you said, and, causing that emotion correlation with certain things, like, the person's mother singing. I guess to me, it raises a piece of the brain for a piece of higher emotion, than just complacency. So causing any type of emotion like that has to be wired through the brain. All emotions are wired through the brain. And that's, I think what else fascinates me about this whole topic, and why, like, we found this correlation with the God Helmet topic to talk about raised emotion, and then start talking about things like ASMR and, different frequency listening videos. I can attest for these Hertz videos because I've meditated with different frequencies in the past, not so much for healing, but for either calmness. And of course, there's others that will kind of, I don't want to say help manipulate your thinking for a little bit more positivity. And I've used, quite a few of these frequencies, for meditating. I have a spouse that works during the daytime, so I have plenty of time on my hands when she's not home to just kind of sit, either on the floor, legs crossed and Indian style, sitting on the ground, or even in a chair, throwing on some noise canceling headphones and just listening for 30 minutes and following the breathing sounds that come through with it. And Josh is chuckling right now if you haven't like seen the video of this. And I'm perfectly fine with, believing in some of these healing frequencies, because it fascinates me of why it actually works. So, Josh, where's the laughter coming from?
It's coming from the fact that I'm a horrible person, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, you were sitting indigenous person style, sir.
Wow. Really? That's where you were going? My apologies. My deepest apologies for Josh's laughter of thinking that I had some racial slur and slander coming through the mic. Wow. See, folks, this is why you listen. This is why you keep listening. You keep coming back.
This is what happens when you're in a management role in your job that has to pay the bills, because this doesn't yet. And all you do is have all these stupid videos that play constantly about all these things that you need to make sure you're aware of. It's like ingrained into your soul. So you like hear certain words and you're like, oh no, bad.
Can't say that, but we'll drop the F-bomb every once in a while, though, but that's perfectly fine. Let's not get into some of those views.
I couldn't help myself.
Wow. So, folks, I may put one or two links inside of the show notes. Josh is still laughing hysterically. So that way you can see what some of these hertz look like, or sound like, rather. But they are based off of chakras of your body. And we actually found a very quick, short list, because the hertz levels are very, very specific. It's not like listen to 100, listen to 200. Like, they are very specific. So 963 hertz is supposed to help the crown chakra. 852 is the third eye. 741 is the throat. 639 is the heart. 528 is the solar plexus. 417 is the sacral, and 396 is the root. Notice that those went down in number as it moves down in your body. So that's the whole purpose of these hertz. They're supposed to help certain parts with different aspects of the way your brain works, which is again essentially what the God helmet is doing, but trying to find a certain set of that EM field to radiate into your brain so that it reacts in a different way versus just the vibration of sound. So it's a different entity, so to speak, because we're working with vibration versus EM field. And you can see where it would fascinate us to continue the conversation from the God helmet into working with something like this. Josh, we also brought up, different ways to fall asleep. You mentioned some people listen to ocean waves, some people listen to rain or just a thunderstorm. I actually live really, really close to a train track, and I have become so accustomed to that sound that I don't want to say it's soothing or does anything for me on an emotional level, but it is something that I have adapted to over time. But I do listen to ocean waves to fall asleep. I need that ambient sound in order to be able to doze off. What do you think the effect and why that works for certain people, or is there something different that you do?
So myself, if I have my girlfriend home, if she's here, I'm fine. I fall asleep just fine. But when she's not here is when I need assistance. And I listen to a lot of different types of ASMR videos, and sometimes I'll listen to videos where they're doing like they brush your hair, or they mime out like cutting your hair,
Mm,
typing, different things like that. And I've noticed a lot of the videos I will watch is like personal attention videos where they're focused on you as the viewer, and it's like soothing. And I think what it is there's the interaction there that keeps my mind focused on that instead of the thousand things running through my mind, which is why I usually need something to fall asleep.
mm,
And a lot of these ASMR sound machines, a lot of stuff is there basically to keep you occupied so you don't spiral into your own head. Because a lot of us, we all have a very similar issue. And it's a lot of us, when you ask people why they don't sleep well, oh, well, my mind just races. I can't stop thinking,
right.
and there's a lot going on in our heads. And I mean, like you and me, we are constantly batting ideas back and forth and, pushing our companies farther and coming up with new ways to advertise and do stuff and do all these. So we're constantly just 1,000 miles an hour.
Right. Agreed. And I think there was
Slow it down.
an argument that I read that people that have to have like extra sounds to fall asleep, and I think you almost proved the point, is because they don't like to feel alone. So to have somebody interacting with you, I mean, you said you use those things when obviously your significant other isn't there. So
Uh,
it's almost like you're alone and you don't want to fall asleep alone. And and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, if my wife is home or not, I still put those ocean sounds on, and I've got her accustomed to that sound as well. So before we were married, she didn't use anything to fall asleep until I came around because I've been doing ocean sounds and rain and that constant, almost like staticky sound. We could say probably decades at this point that I've been, using this. So we'll just say probably close to 20 years. So it's kind of a crazy concept, but the whole point is it manipulates the brain in one way or another, whether it's to keep you company, whether it's to keep you focused, whether it's to draw you away from your everyday life of all of the things that are happening. We're manipulating the brain, which is essentially what the God helmet was intended for, but in a much different
right.
manner. And that's why I feel like this part of the conversation was a good correlation to kind of continue on, because I'm not going to condone anybody testing these experiments without somebody that has professionally done this before. Like, I'm not going to go spend the $650 and start electrocuting my temporal lobes to try to see what the hell we can get out of it. Especially mainly because I do work alone, unless I'm doing an experiment on the interactive ghost hunting experience, and those are strangers to me. So I'm not going to be putting this helmet on anybody like that. I mean, I feel bad enough sometimes putting a blindfold on over somebody, to do the Estes method. I'm not going to throw some electricity in there, radiation to do anything further. Like we have enough issues with sometimes just a blindfold and the overstimulation of things.
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, there's still a lot of speculation with the God helmet. I mean,
yeah,
there was a lot of people that said that there was a placebo effect from it. Actually, this is why we had the correlation to the 2000s originally, and we thought that this had been conducted then. So in 2005, there was actually a gentleman who borrowed equipment, the actual same type of equipment that they were using, and used it again. His name was Per Granquist. Granquivist.
okay,
I'm butchering the hell out of this probably. But he Swedish. He
Mm.
took 46 people in Sweden that volunteered, and he ran the same experiments, tried to correlate it completely. And he actually argued that Persinger's experiments with the God helmet were not properly double blinded, and that the participants in the study knew what exactly was supposed to be happening. So they were influenced
Mm.
on what he thought was going to happen. So he said, you didn't put these people in a room, put on a helmet, and be like, okay, well, we'll be back later. Like, you basically let
Told them,
them know that there was
yeah,
supposed to be some stimulation that might make them see something, or have an experience. And
fair.
so
So it wasn't a controlled experiment to his eyes, and he wanted to perfect it to try to figure it out. So what was his end result?
he got nothing. All of his participants had absolutely no feelings. They had no like sensations of someone being present in the room with them. And it was the lack of information that was the difference.
Wow, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
So that's why people still speculate that there's this thing for the placebo effect. And I mean, for those out there that really would like to see a little bit more about like the God helmet, it is on a few different TV shows where people try to utilize it. If you watch Hellier, it's in season 2, episode 3. It's also on 28 Days Haunted in episode 3, and CBS actually aired a TV special called Evil, and they went over the God helmet in one of the episodes of that series, and were actually sued later for having the negative connotation.
Wow. Wow. Well, I think if folks go back a few episodes, they'll see how I feel about the word evil. But I could see I would probably do the exact same thing if that were my device and my design. I would probably do the exact same thing. So kudos to them for going after it. Wow, Josh, what a weird episode. This was odd. Like again, I know like this is dead of summer that this is releasing, so 4th of July. I know that this isn't a normal topic, but guys, you don't normally get normal topics with us anyway. I mean, we've talked about some really weird shit, and we got some more weird shit coming. I'm hoping by this point we've had 1 or 2 bonus episodes for you with some interviews. And again, those will come up by surprise in between our bi-weekly episodes of this coming out every 2 weeks. And I'm hoping you're enjoying those interviews because we're looking for folks that are bringing something to the field that's a little bit outside the box. And, Josh has been posting a lot about like, hey, get in touch with us if you'd like to be on the show. Well, what we're really looking for is we're not looking for just ghost hunters that are capturing evidence. Josh and I do that shit on our own. We want you to bring something to teach us something. What are you doing in the field that is different than everybody else and is, I guess, generating results in the paranormal field where we can actually start to look at things in a different manner. My mind right now is racing around vibration just because of the topic of, this conversation. But have you done something with vibration that hasn't been done in the field before that might be able to prove something. And
Cat balls.
I was thinking more like the Eddy machine. Cat balls. They're not called that, Josh. They're called the devil ball. If you don't remember, was it the devil ball? The hell was
Yeah, it was like the devil's devil ball or Satan ball or
devil's toy? I don't know what the hell it was. Anyway, they made it red and blinky blinky. But again, I'm thinking, on a geo level of that vibration of like the Eddy machine and measuring it and what does it mean in correlation with other things. Other food for thought of something you might be doing different to bring to the field that we're not doing yet or haven't thought of yet. So, Josh, any final thoughts on the God Helmet before we wrap it up?
you know what? I just anybody that's interested in this concept, please look farther into it. Do your research. Do not attempt this without the information. This is not a device I think people should play with. I
agreed.
am honestly concerned about the correlations between the calculations I was looking at as far as what amount of milligauss you're just shoving onto your head. I mean, some people argued that it wasn't strong enough to penetrate the skull. I call bullshit. If I can have a family call me and tell me that the coffee table is walking across the room, and find out that it's because their electrical panel is crap and there's EMF running rampant in their house,
Yeah.
then I definitely don't want to put a helmet on that just gonna give me that, sensation.
Yeah, directly, like on purpose. So again, Josh makes a great point. Safety, 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 always when it comes to any type of experiments, dealing with any type of ferrofluid, or any, electric shock waves. Again, I'm honestly not going to recommend this at all. I think it's fascinating, but all I can think of are those giant, like tweezer type things with the cotton balls on the end of it to do electric shock therapy, and you got a mouthpiece in. Like, this is not something that I'm going to recommend that we do, although I am still fascinated by the concept of it, of manipulating the brain to learn more about it and possibly even healing it. But again, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to say that anybody listening to this is a neuroscientist either. So I think that's probably the only term I could come up with. If you're not like into the brain and that's what you went to school for and you were trained for, I'm not going to recommend you do this at all. I mean, I'm not going to go running into, the doctors that I have and say, hey, can you shock my brain just a little bit and we'll see what happens? That's just maybe I'll see God. But
Give it a little kick.
just a little kick to the face. It's fine.
A little zippy.
All right, guys, that's it. We will talk to you in 2 weeks. Make sure you're leaving a review on Spotify, and you can leave us any comments in this specific episode. Please don't say that you want to be kicked in the face with a mule. Have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you later.
See you on the next hallucination.
Hey, bearded ghost hunters! Are you taking care of your beard with all natural products? The Magnanimous Beard Superstore has everything you need from beard oils, shampoos, beard butter, beard balm, and so much more. You can have any of their products scented with one of their amazing 45 cents. Head over to www.yourbeardsuperstore.com and use code GHOST at checkout to receive $5 off your order. Both Nick and Josh use these products daily, and our beards look and feel great and smell great too. Head over to yourbeardsuperstore.com and use code GHOST for your discount on these magnanimous products. You won't be disappointed. If you have a white or silver beard, they even have specialized products that will help keep the coloring of your beard. Use code GHOST at yourbeardsuperstore.com. This ad is Zeus approved.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. You can follow your host, Nicholas McGirr, on most social media platforms under the name Stories in the Cemetery. If you'd like to follow co-host Joshua Amen, you'll find him under the name Amen Paranormal Research. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links to specific articles written by your hosts and all the references used to create this episode. Happy hunting. We'll see you on the next episode of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast.